Dungeons and Dragons Monsters! Deadliest Monster Edition.
Greetings, all you adventurous souls. The monster manuals of Dungeons and Dragons are filled with all kinds of creatures. We players and dungeon masters have encountered many varieties of monsters, and every so often we reflect after an encounter, tenderly pondering over a room of slaughtered characters. That was notably savage. For all sorts of reasons, certain monsters just kick more ass than others. In this video, I'm going to delve into some of the most dangerous foes a party of adventurers can face. I want to note that I'm taking all of these monsters within the context of their own challenge ratings. If the monster is CR2, I am considering how it interacts with low-level characters. This video is not about who has the biggest challenge rating. So let's smash down this dungeon door, see what's stomping around on the other side.
Number 10, Gelatinous Cube.
Starting off, we have the classic ooze monster, the Gelatinous Cube, the Jello of Doom, the Rectangular Ruinator, the Squared Slime of Savageness, sludging, glooping, and otherwise blorping its way down dungeon corridors is this translucent monster that mindlessly pursues any prey to feed its never-ending hunger. Good old Cubey can be hard to spot due to its transparency, and unexpecting adventurers may just find themselves bumbling straight into its mass of acidic slime. Once engulfed by the Gelatinous Cube, you have precious few moments to get out before you are dissolved. Especially for lower level characters, this can mean a swift and grisly fate. But for those who are clever, the Gelatinous Cube's weaknesses are easy to exploit. Its AC and dexterity are extremely poor. Its speed is a paltry 15 feet. And the thing has no concept of tactics, nor any cognitive ability. Keep your distance, fire from range as best you can, and stay out of its engulf, or else you'll be dangin' mother poopin' screwed to heck!
Number 9, Catoblepus.
The 9th slot on our countdown has a peculiar name. The Catoblepus. Catoblepus. Catobleplush. This monster could have easily landed a spot on my obscure monsters list, as it's not one that you see or hear much about, though it does come from real-world ancient mythology. This monstrous beast has a buffalo-like form, a terrible stench, a powerful club tail that deals strong damage and can stun the target, and a gaze of death. Check this out. The Catoblepus targets a creature that it can see within 30 feet of it. The target must make a DC 16 Constitution saving throw, taking 8d8 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. If the saving throw fails by 5 or more, the target instead takes 64 necrotic damage. The target dies if reduced to 0 hit points by this ray. Keep in mind this creature is CR5. That means it will most likely be encountered by 4th, 5th, 6th level characters, possibly even lower. Let's compare the death gaze to the stats of a 5th level player character. Here are some example stats. A DC 16 save is half damage, which is an average of 18 damage. Those who fail take an average of 36 damage. So at this point we already have our cleric and wizard, even at max hit points, dying if they don't succeed on the save. And keep in mind that at 0 hit points, the target dies. Also remember that if the target fails by 5 or more, the damage is straight up 64. The Catablapus, however, does have some weak points. It has a low AC, it is really unintelligent, and it is utterly susceptible to long-ranged attacks or flying characters. Because of these weaknesses, it's one of the lowest creatures on this list. Nevertheless, that Death Gaze, though, that has potential to wreak some tremendous havoc.
Number 8, Flame Skull.
Here's another monster you don't hear too much about, but it can be an unexpectedly perilous enemy. Aside from the fact that I love the idea of a monster that's a floating head, the Flame Skull has proven very enjoyable and very dangerous for me every time. The creature has a flying speed of 40 feet, and it's tiny size, so this thing is highly maneuverable. It has a fair number of resistances and immunities, including magic resistance. Its AC is on the low side, but it does have the shield and blur spells. The Flame Skull's spells are really where it gets deadly. It has a few spell slots to cast Magic Missile and Flaming Sphere, and 1 slot to cast Mother Poopin' Fireball! Woo! Bear in mind this monster is challenge rating 4, which means characters will most likely be level 3, 4, 5. A lower level party getting hit with Fireball is devastating. Even a mid-level party will take that seriously. And even if the Flame Skull can't or simply doesn't choose to use its spells, it has a double at-will fire ray, each dealing 3d6 damage per hit. So look what's going on here. We have an airborne creature, so it's probably only being attacked with characters by spells or bows, but it resists lightning, necrotic, piercing, and it's immune to cold, fire, poison. It has magic resistance and shield to boot. Meanwhile, it is dealing realistically 66 damage per turn, or higher when it uses that fireball. If the characters do manage to down the Flame Skull, it revives after an hour unless they sprinkle holy water on its remains. So they might encounter the thing yet again, and possibly before they've even taken a short rest. When characters face a Flame Skull at lower levels, they have to significantly alter their tactics and use their best strategies. Otherwise, someone's gonna die. And that makes this flamer a flamboyant, flame-tastic killer.
Number 7, Oni!
Moving along, we encounter the Oni, a fiendish ogre mage with a slew of different abilities. It has a 30-foot fly speed, which isn't particularly fast, but it still makes quite a difference, especially considering that it can turn invisible at will. And it regenerates 10 hit points per round. In other words, unless the party totally unloads on this monster and kills it in one turn, it will most likely be able to escape, heal, and come back for more savagery. The Oni can assault a party over and over without them having the chance to rest and recover much of anything, which can get very deadly over a span of time.
All right, Bjorn, we have driven back the foe. Now we must rest and tend to your wounds.
By the scaly tits of Tiamat! It's back, and it cut off Bjorn's head!
The Oni's main attack is a glaive that it can strike with twice per turn, dealing 2d10 plus 4 damage per hit. That is nothing to scoff at for low or even mid-level characters. And for good measure, the Oni can also cast Cone of Cold once per day for a high-powered blast of area damage. It also has Gaseous Form once per day to give it yet another means of escape or mobility, especially in a well-designed lair. The last notable trait that Oni have is the ability to change shape into the form of a small or medium humanoid or a large giant. This can potentially add to the Oni's deadliness, as it might lure or deceive the party into a trap. All in all, the Oni is a multifaceted, treacherous monster that is great both for combat and for story development.
Number 6, Succubus.
Now we have one of the most iconic fiends in existence, the Succubus, also known as the Incubus for the male variety. This hellish foe is the archetypal evil seducer. Fun fact, the Succubus was a demon in 3rd edition, then changed to a devil in 4th edition due to its more sophisticated and manipulative manner, then changed yet again to neither demon nor devil in 5th edition, operating as their own subtype of fiend. Personally, I don't really care so much how the Succubus gets classified. A Succubus, by any other classification, would still suck. Just as sweet. And by suck, I mean drain the life out of you. On the defensive side, the Succubus is very mobile with a 60-foot fly speed and a number of resistances, including cold, fire, lightning, poison, non-magical weapons. Even more so, they can go back and forth between the material plane and the ethereal plane at will. If you are intent on killing a Succubus, you had better hit it with your strongest attack and fast, as I doubt low or mid-level characters have the means of chasing it down through the ethereal. On the trickery side of things, the Succubus can polymorph into small and medium-sized humanoids in order to appear as whatever kind of person. Complementing this are deception and persuasion skills of +9, stealth of +7. It also has telepathy. But the nasty stuff really comes with the Succubus's charm and draining kiss abilities. Charm essentially overwhelms a target's will, and once the target is charmed, it will obey whatever commands the Succubus gives, either verbally or telepathically. It only gets a new saving throw to free itself if it is harmed or given a suicidal command. This means that an encounter with the Succubus is very likely that at least one of your party members is going to turn on you during the fight. And that's very devastating. And woe be to whoever kisses a Succubus, for its kiss deals a lot of psychic damage, reducing the target's maximum hit points when it does so, and killing the target outright upon reaching 0 hit points. That's overpowered! That's OP, man! That's broken!
Yes. Yes. Your tears are like electrolytes. They're what dungeon masters crave. Number 5, WilloWisp.
Next is one of my favorite undead monsters, the WilloWisp. It is a floating ghost orb that haunts swamplands and typically disguises itself to look like a lantern or torch in order to lure victims to their demise. This monster is very dangerous, particularly to lower level adventurers, as it combines many potent elements. It has superior mobility in the form of a 50-foot fly speed and incorporeal movement. It has superior stealth due to at-will invisibility. It has a high AC of 19. It has a number of resistances and immunities because it's undead, ephemeral, and a somewhat elemental creature. It deals 2d8 lightning damage as its primary attack. This damage is significant, and to top it off, it has a consume life ability that specifically targets a character at 0 hit points as a bonus action, potentially killing them outright and healing itself. Will-o'-the-wisp? More like kill-o'-the-wisp.
Come and play in the swamp with me. I've got my dollies and a bunch of death at tea.
Limberful Banshee!
Screaming into the 5th position is the Banshee. You can run, you can hide, but this ghostly foe can detect living creatures up to a range of 5 miles. It can also fly and use incorporeal movement to pass through solid objects. The Banshee's AC is low, which is its Achilles heel, but it does have a large number of resistances and immunities. The thing that makes a Banshee so deadly, of course, is its wail. All creatures within 30 feet who hear the wail must make a Constitution saving throw or drop to 0 hit points. This is balanced by the fact that the range is somewhat limited and the Banshee can only use it once per day, but the potential for devastation is very real. In older editions, the wail could straight up kill those who heard it, but nowadays things are toned down a bit for the sake of game balance. The Banshee also has a fear-inducing gaze and a necrotic touch, but its wail of doom is really what makes this ghost so grisly. Welcome aboard the Soul Train! Next stop, your death, mother liquor! Number 3, the Aboleth. Coming to a murky lake near you is the Aboleth. Ancient water aberrations from the land before time, and time before gods. That's right, these eerie things have been slithering around since before it all began, and they still are intent on dominating any and everything that they can. Is it a giant tadpole leech? A mutant eel squid? An alien fish? Yes. There are a number of challenges that come with fighting an Aboleth. First, it's an aquatic monster, so you will likely encounter it in the water, probably in an underground lake. For those characters who have water breathing and swim speeds through magic or whatever means, underwater combat is not much of a problem, but for everyone else, it is a very limiting type of terrain. But not to fear, the Aboleth itself has a mucus cloud that can transform you into a water breather, as in, you can only breathe water, for 1d4 hours at least. This monster also has telepathic powers that not only allows it to communicate with you, but also learn your greatest desires. Knowledge is power, and considering how intelligent the Aboleth is, it could seriously use that to its advantage. The Aboleth has a 3-tentacle multi-attack that deals only so-so damage, but it inflicts a gnarly disease. After a minute, the subject's skin becomes moist and translucent, like some cave salamander, and it cannot regain hit points outside of water. If it dries out, it suffers ongoing damage until it again gets doused or submerged. This disease is permanent, can only be cured by heal or other such high-level magic. In the midst of a combat encounter, the Aboleth also deploys its Enslave ability, which dominates the mind of its target. While it's not too difficult for the target to break free, even a couple rounds of player characters being turned against each other can be seriously dangerous. And let's not forget that the Aboleth has legendary actions, a perception check, a tail slap, and a psychic drain that steals hit points from an enslaved target. By now, we already see how dangerous the long-term scenario is with an Aboleth. Sure, if the DM is inexperienced, he might run the Aboleth in a very simplistic, all-out straight fight to the death right here and now. But for the DM who plays out monsters' personalities and strategies, the Aboleth will patiently seize control of the characters, mutating and manipulating them over the course of the dungeon. and more than likely the aboleth will have followers and servitors of its own to aid it. Heck, the aboleth may function as a demigod worshipped by some subterranean monster folk.
All hail the great slimy lord of the lake!
I be gon' reach deep inside your soul. I be gon' take control. You gon' feel the glory of the Lord of the lake, slithering round, deep down, inside. Number 2, Warpriest. The number 2 slot on this list could be dedicated to all enemy healers, but I chose to use the Warpriest from Volo's Guide to Monsters. I've always found it odd how few monsters have healing powers or healing allies that can heal them during battle. When adventurers are forming parties or preparing for a dangerous expedition, one of the main considerations is healing. And countless times we've all seen how the main thing that brought about the character's victory over their enemy was that they had healing magic and the enemy didn't. Self-preservation does not require much intelligence here. It's fairly basic desire. Is it that most monsters just like to live dangerously, baby? We could delve into game design theory and talk about how monsters healing each other makes a fight last too long or just feels frustrating to the players. But I hold a different perspective. Enemy healers are very dangerous. Most encounters that include an enemy cleric are harder. And if it's an already hard challenge, things can get deadly if the characters don't take out that cleric. And if the enemy healer has a good defense, in the case of the AC 19 Warpriest, all the more challenging. Of all the most powerful spells in 5th edition D&D, Healing Word has to rank in the very top. The ability to bring a target back into the fight from the brink of death at a 60-foot range as a bonus action is incredibly potent. A couple months ago, my home group encountered an enemy party that included a berserker barbarian and a cleric. The barbarian was nearly felled a couple different times, but the cleric cast Healing Word or Cure Wounds on him almost every round. The party delayed in taking down the enemy cleric, and that berserker went on to kill 2 of the player characters.
Number 1, Shadow Dragon.
All of the dragons in D&D are a force to be reckoned with, and could easily be justified in a slot on my list. But I want to focus on a rarer type of dragon, the Shadow Dragon. Now this technically is a template that can convert any dragon, though the example in the monster manual is challenge rating 13, based off of a young red dragon. In addition to the base dragon's typical array of strengths, such as flight, high AC, high hit points, high damage, the Shadow Dragon has resistance to all damage that isn't force, psychic, or radiant, while it's in dim light or darkness. This benefit isn't 100% foolproof for the dragon, but it potentially doubles the dragon's hit points, which is just massive. Then we get to the even deadlier part, the dragon's breath weapon. Its typical breath attack, such as fire or lightning, becomes necrotic damage, and any target reduced to 0 hit points dies straight away. And a shadow rises from its corpse to fight against the characters. So not only does the shadow breath straight out kill targets, but it creates an additional enemy to thwart the character's hopes. Certain characters are more effective against a shadow dragon, such as those with powers of light, radiance, force, psychic. Revivify would be a good spell to have as well. But without these specific capabilities, a party is severely disadvantaged and threatened by a shadow dragon. As always, Thank you for joining me on another gaze into the endless pages of the monstrous manuals. And don't forget, you can't spell Dungeon Master without dung on as. So make those characters poop their britches trying to survive against these deadliest creatures. Don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. May your adventures be many, my friends.